Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at the use of the decision points or DP levels we have in MTPredictor, and I'll be looking at some examples on the US E-minis in particular that unfolded yesterday, which was Tuesday, October the 24th. But before we start, as usual, let's go through our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken. They're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Also remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll say that another way. All professional traders know and understand, and more importantly accept, that losses can and will and do unfold. We'll be looking at some losing trades in today's video as well. As you'll see, the important thing is keeping the losses small by the use of position sizing. Remind you that all trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, to start with, I want to follow up on a decision point I put on the chart in yesterday's MTPredictor customer only trading webinar at the time. And it's important that we sort of follow up on things that were done at the time, because the market hadn't reached this level and I wanted to show you what unfolded. So this was the ES at about 10:30. You can see there we are, which is about 10:30 New York time yesterday. This is when the market was open and working during our training webinar. And what I did is, if I take this off, I'll start again. What I did is I put a DP on the chart using the last swing into the low. This is a technique we teach a lot in MTPredictor, where we use the last swing into a high or low. So here is the last major low, which is actually the low of the day before. As you can see, that made a pivot low, and this was the last swing into the low. So we go back to the start of that connected line. You can see there it is. We go back to that pivot high, we right mouse click, and then we do decision point. As you can see, this put an area on the chart in advance. This is the important thing about these decision point levels, is because they're areas that are leading. They're on the chart in advance. They're before the market even gets there. And what I said at the time is that this would be an area of interest if the market got up into this level later in the day. We're not projecting it's going to get there. We're just saying that if it does, it's a potential area of resistance as the market gets there. But the important point I want to stress is how it is on the chart in advance. You can see the market hadn't got there. So if I turn our trading mode off, this is what unfolded the rest of the day. You can see the ES actually rallied up, and made a high. But look where it made the high. If I drag this across, it made the high right at this decision point resistance area that was placed on the chart literally hours beforehand, because the high came in at about 2:30, and this was placed on the chart 10:30. So 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 4 hours in advance. So 4 hours before the market even got there, this resistance level was on the chart. And as you can see, that nailed the very high of the day for you. So this is how important the levels can be, is that they can give you very good leading support and resistance areas, but more importantly, they're there on the chart ready in advance. So that was great that caught the high of the day for you. It's just a pity we didn't get any trade setups on the 3-minute ES yesterday. By the way, this was a day session only chart using our regular trading hours of 9:30 to 4:15. Let's have a look at the YM next. Now this was interesting, because if I go out to the higher time frame chart, this is what we normally do with our higher time frame charts. Now in fact, actually I'll go to the NQ first, because this is probably a slightly better or not easy one to do. Normally when we place DPs on, we place them on the higher time frame. What do I mean by that? I mean by time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. Why do we do that? Because it's better to basically like swim with the flow. If you imagine going into a river, it's better to swim with the tide than against it. So so for that, we look to the higher time frame chart for support and resistance areas. So for this, I went out to the 15-minute chart. Now here again, even before yesterday opened, so I'll just go back to even before yesterday opened and have a look at placing a DP on the chart. Again, I'll use the last swing into a high or low. You can see on the 15-minute NQ, can you see how that's a major high there as I'm circling? This is the last swing up into that high. So you go back to this pivot here, right mouse click, place decision point. So that was on the chart even before yesterday opened. Can you see that? It's there before the market opened. If I now turn training mode off, can you see how the market came down, made the low of the day yesterday absolutely perfectly as the market started to rally. As it rallied up, the market came up, came down, started to make a low here, then started to rally up. If we then again use the last pivot, so that's the last pivot high, right mouse click, do the decision point, again that would have been on the chart before the market got up there. So let's see what that looked like on the 3-minute chart. So if we now go back to the 3-minute chart, can you see how this DP support zone would have caught the very low of the day? In other words, the market opened, filled the gap, went slightly lower, went right down into that DP support zone. But more importantly, that was on the chart in advance before yesterday even opened. As it started to come down, you could have actually placed another DP off this low here that would then give you a slightly narrower support zone, which also nailed the low there. Then the market was starting to go up. It was starting to go up. There wasn't any particular resistance areas as the market went up. This DP hadn't been on our chart yet because this DP came on after this pivot high here had formed. So as the market came down into this and started to decline here, let's have a look at again our training mode. Let's go back to here. I'll just take that one off. Remember, I used the DP from the last swing into the high. So there's the high there. This is quite a small swing, but again it's just the last swing to the high. Right mouse click, do decision point. This is a potential area of support. Only a small area, because you can see that's not a very big swing, but you can see that's an area of where support could come in. So let's step forward. We now start to get a TS4 buy setup, but can you see how it came in at this support zone? So let's right mouse click, do our analysis, go forward. It actually went down a little bit further, so it wasn't filled. More importantly, it wasn't actually taking the high out, so it wasn't actually filled. Let's place the DP on again. Let's move forward another bar. We get another TS4 buy setup, but you see how it's still at our DP support level. So let's do that again. Let's place the analysis on. Here's a potential trade setup. Let's move forward again. Now it's filled. Can you see that? It's actually gone into our or gone beyond our buy area and without doing our stop area. But can you see how this TS4 unfolded at this DP support zone that was on the chart from that last swing even before it got there? So this is the good thing. It gives you areas of support and resistance in advance. If I now turn training mode off, let's see what that trade did. It went right up into its profit target very nicely indeed. Our MTP trend was weak, i.e. less than our grey strength bands, therefore a profit of plus 3.6R was available. This is where position sizing comes in, because the profit is related to the initial risk, so the profit was not just in dollars, but 3.6 times greater than the initial risk. It was a good trade to take. As we've already seen, if I go back to the 15-minute chart, that's where that TS4 buy setup came in on the 3-minute chart. So as it started to rally, you'd have gone back to the 15-minute chart, put the 15-minute resistance on. So if I go back to the 3-minute chart, that was also at that same profit target area. And as you can see, that nailed the high of the day for you as well. Market's coming down off that resistance area, therefore you wouldn't be considering this buy setup, even though our MTP trend was grey. And I don't know whether you'd even consider a VS buy setup here because it was a bit later in the day. So as you can see here, our DPs nailed the low of the day for you on the NQ and nailed the high of the day for you, and in between caught a very nice profitable trade. YM was a bit different because it gapped up. So if I go to the 15-minute chart, it gapped up well beyond its 15-minute DP, because here's the last pivot high, here's the DP, and as you can see it went well beyond it up into no man's land. So it's obviously a little bit more difficult when this happens, and as I was explaining yesterday, when the pattern's not clear, they're probably not the best kind of charts to trade. It's far better picking a chart where the pattern's clear and everything works well, i.e. on the NQ, because here you can see the market came into support beautifully, came up nicely, that trade setup again came into support beautifully, and everything was all nice and clear, came into the high beautifully, and the picture was nice and clear. On the YM it wasn't quite so nice. But anyway, let's have a look at the setups. Our MTP trend was blue, therefore you'd be avoiding that sell. There was a buy setup here of that TS3 buy setup, but again that wasn't as clear as the one on the NQ. The NQ would be a far better trade setup to actually take rather than this one. Nevertheless, this made plus 2.3R. This is why it's important to do position sizing, because as the market started to decline a bit later on, there was another buy setup here, as indicated by our history triangle. So we can right mouse click over this blue buy bar. Again, position sizing would have kept the initial risk small and under control. So here, this would have been a losing trade. And this is what I said at the start of the video, is that losses can and will and do happen. But in this case, this would have been a 1R or 1 risk unit loss. So that would be a minus 1R loss. There was another TS4 buy setup here, again a valid one on a blue MTP trend. This one didn't quite get to the 100% initial risk level, came back down, so this would probably be a losing trade as well. So yes, losses can and will and do happen, but again this would have been only minus 1R. So even if you had taken this plus this first trade, then these second two trades, you'd have had 2 losing trades, 1 profitable trade, but the 2 losses will be kept at minus 1, or minus 2R. And this profit, this is where position comes in, is plus 2.3R. So you can see that this profit would have more than made up for the 2 losing trades. But overall, it was basically a break-even day. So plus 2.3R minus 1 is basically 0. But as I said, this probably isn't a clear picture because you'd gone beyond the DP. It wasn't very clear. So as we teach in our MTPredictor training, these kind of days is probably ones you want to avoid. You want to work when the setups are nice and clear as the NQ. In this case, where we actually nailed the low of the day beautifully with our 15-minute DP. The market trend was clearly up into this nice setup, which again came in at support off that last DP, off that last swing into that high there, with our blue MTP trend up into the next 15-minute DP that nailed the high of the day. Result was a nice plus 3.6R. And also on the ES, we can see that we nailed the high of the day perfectly there with our DP that was on the chart literally hours and hours in advance. So this is how you use your DPs on the chart, where we look at the last swing into the highs and lows for areas of support and resistance in advance. And as you can see, that nailed the high of the day. So how important would that have been for you as a trader to know that that would be a good resistance area to have on your chart literally hours in advance? And then also, as we've seen on the NQ, to have your higher time frame DPs to give you larger time frame support and resistance zones to trade in the direction of those, to then be able to get some good trade setups again when the picture's clear. That's the most important thing, is when the picture's clear. It's what I call the cyclical nature of trading, and is what I covered in the last video. So as you can see, a good day for MTPredictor yesterday, where our DPs nailed the low and the high of the day on the NQ. We nailed the high of the day on the ES, and we tried to avoid the YM because the picture wasn't clear. So a good day for MTPredictor yesterday, particularly when you use the DPs on the current chart and also on the higher time frame chart as well.